Hey guys, Adam from Splendid Sports back for another 3 and 3, and I am happy to be joined by Chris McGill. Chris, how you doing, man?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, Adam.
I really appreciate you coming on. I've wanted to ask you to do this for a while, but I figured, I got episode 23 here. This is number 23, and you are one of the best Jordan collectors that I know of, at least. I love watching on Instagram, and I watch the crossover, so I know a lot about your collection. But I figured, who better than to have on episode number 23 than you? So if this is someone's first 3 and 3 that they're catching, we're going to do a little hobby talk, but basically Chris is going to show 3 of his favorite cards in his collection, and we'll pull up images. 2 of them he doesn't have in hand, so we're going to pull them up through a thing called CardLadder. So we're going to look at images, talk about the cards, and then we're going to look at 3 cards that are on his want list in CardLadder and talk about those. But yeah, Chris, first and foremost, I just want to say I love a lot about what you and your team are doing. I love CardLadder. Once we get into CardLadder, I got a hot take on CardLadder that I want to share.
Nice.
But I'm a big fan of the crossover. I watch the crossover when it does either on podcast or YouTube. It's too late for me on Instagram when you guys do it live because I'm old. So
yeah,
I always catch the replay. But big fan of what you guys are doing. So really appreciate that. But if some of my audience that watches my shows, they might not be in your segment of the hobby, so to speak. Sure. I got a lot of like vintage baseball collectors. So if you wouldn't mind, could you just give us like a brief rundown of what you collect or anything else you want to say?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for making the content that you make. I've watched more than a few episodes of yours. And thank you for the suggestions that you've made to CardLadder as well. You are one of the reasons why we created the custom index feature, and the vintage index that you created, and just the energy and the passion that you have for collecting vintage it matters, and it has influenced us a bit as we've tried to make the best product we can. So just want to give you a shout out.
Thank you.
And as far as what was the question here?
Just give us for those who might not be familiar, maybe people that aren't on Instagram or follow a lot of the stuff that you guys are doing. Give us just a little rundown of what you collect.
Yeah, so basically what I collect at the heart and core, and I'm going to refer to the collection as ours because my fiance Christina and I are a collecting tandem. So at the heart of our collection is Michael Jordan. He was my favorite player as a kid. He's my favorite player today. He's the best basketball player of all time, and he has the best cards. So it's not too tough for me to figure out what I want to focus on. But outside of Michael Jordan, I've taken an interest in some active players, just to give me something to follow in the day-to-day sports world. And I've actually got obsessed with it in the last few years. But, in football, I'm a pretty big Le'Veon Bell collector. He was a key part to a few fantasy successes. And then also Christian McCaffrey for the same reason. McCaffrey being in the 2017 rookie class is awesome. So all the great Mahomes rookies that exist, McCaffrey's in those sets as well. Then in basketball, Christina and I started chasing like 2018 Prism when that product came out. We just wanted something modern to open, and Luka was the chase, along with Trey. And but after we started getting some Luka cards, I started watching him play, and I said, "This guy's incredible," and we became Luka collectors. And then after following the league and really get into it and trying to figure out, hey, does this guy Luka have a chance to be an all-time great, or is this just kind of going to be a flash in the pan? I became obsessed with studying advanced metrics in basketball, and then every year this guy, as Stephen A. Smith once said, this tub of lard, Nikola Jokic, was at the top of all the analytics categories year after year after year. Box plus minus, player efficiency rating, 538 Raptor, just always in first. And I eventually caved in. After he won his first MVP, I caved in, and I said, I'm going to try collecting this guy. So that's pretty much like – and then I've got – we went and saw Steph Curry play in the playoffs last year, and I thought he was awesome. And so we picked up a nice Steph Curry card. Got a few nice LeBron James cards. I really like Lamar Jackson. Got a sweet, rookie of his. Like, the collection starts to really spread out, but yeah, man, that's I could talk about my collection for a long time. So let's just stop there.
Well, and especially the Joker, Jokic, you were very early on that train, man. And so kudos to you with the analytics. For me, it was, I watch a lot of NBA, not as much maybe this year as I have in the past, but I have at the beginning of the season, I watched a lot of Nuggets games. I have, got the NBA League Pass, and I watched Nuggets games. Now, I obviously knew about Jokic. I knew about his stats and his 2 MVPs, but really until I started watching him like on a nightly basis, I'm like, this guy is an all-timer because, I'm a Larry Bird collector too. Yeah. And he reminds me so much of Larry Bird, the way he passed, in Magic too. And that is my favorite thing in basketball is not just guys who put up triple-double stats, but they do it in a way that's so entertaining. And Jokic, man, if for people who don't watch him and watch his games that much, his passing is like it's Magic and Bird level passing, which I really haven't seen. I mean, LeBron, yeah, but not to that degree as far as like the craftsmanship and the art of the passing, the no looks and seeing things that no one else can see as far as angles and stuff. So for me, that was what made me want to go out and buy a Jokic card. So I'm not going to become a Jokic collector or anything like that, but I wanted to have at least one card of his in my collection because I was just like, this guy is incredible, man. This is like Larry Bird reincarnated right here, even though he's not dead. But that's what got me is that eye test of watching him actually like play. And that clicked for me. Like, I need one card of this guy just to have. So Congrats on, man, I think he's going to win his 3rd MVP this year. So that's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, we'll see. It's a really tough competition right now. And there's a lot of great basketball being played right now. So,
yeah. Well, we'll get into things a little further, but let's get rolling on 3 of your favorite cards. Now, do you want to do the one you have in hand first?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. And yeah, this one's the lightweight compared to the other 2 anyway. So we'll open with this one. But this is the 1997-98. I'm going to try and show it so I don't get too much glare. 1997-98 Upper Deck Records collection. Michael Jordan, BGS 9.5. It's low pop. I think the BGS 9.5 pop is under 20. And the PSA 10 pop, I think, is pretty modest as well. The thing I love about the card is just that it symbolizes. Well, first of all, just from a design point of view, there's no way I'm going to be able to show it over video on my low resolution camera, but there are grooves in the card. The card is designed as if it were an LP, and there are grooves in the card that just give it an extra texture. That's pretty neat. There's lots of really cool details on the card that make it an interesting thing to look at in hand. But I also like what the insert set symbolizes. Records collection. That's a pretty good thing for a Michael Jordan collector because the guy set a lot of records.
Yeah. Yes.
And so I just like what it stands for. That's one of the things I love most about Jordan is just that he set a lot of records, and part of his legacy, I think, is that he was so dominant for at the peak of his powers. Whether it's 10 scoring titles or the fact that even though he came after Wilt and all the great scorers that have come after him and before him, he still, even with the Wizards years, has the highest points per game in NBA history. There's just there's so much to appreciate about his game and what he did. So that's the first one, Adam, is the records collection.
How did you get that one originally? Was it a card show online?
Oh, it's a great question. It's a funny story behind how I got this one. So I first discovered this insert years ago, and I had a copy back then, and then I traded it away. and I regretted it. And so then, you don't see them come up very much. They're tough to find in a gem mint condition. But my buddy Coleman Cards came into one at a card show, and he's a dealer. And so he got his hands on one, and then he posted his card show pickups. And I messaged him and I said, "Hey, would you be willing to trade me that card for like a bunch of my low end PSA slabs? Because I have like a ton of junk slabs, let's call them." And so he said, "Yeah, if we can make the values work." And so I ended up trading him about 60 cards for this one. And, I think he made out well, and I'm really happy to just have the card, have a copy of the card in a gem mint condition back. So that's the story behind that.
Beautiful. Love it. All right. So for the second and third cards, you don't have them in hand. So what we're going to do, I'm going to pull up the CardLadder Showcase here.
Yep.
I love the co-founder of CardLadder. I'm here fumbling through CardLadder as he watches.
Oh, you're doing great. I actually saw you clicking through it earlier. It was
I was
definitely know what you're doing. Like when you use it on your show too, you definitely know how to move around.
A little bit. I've been about 2 years. I've been using it, and I'll talk a little further about that. But man, the updates and the new features that you guys have put in, like, wow. I mean, I'll go a little further into it after we look at this one, but
sure.
I'm loving everything you guys are adding to the mix here with CardLadder. But first, for me, this is like the greatest Michael Jordan card there is. I know there's a green of this, but for me, just because of the red and the Bulls and Jordan, I think this is like the perfect Michael Jordan card. So take it away.
Yeah, so there are better Michael Jordan cards out there. There's about half a dozen playing days, one-of-ones from the main brands that are all probably better than this card. Some definitely better, like the 98-99 Metal Universe Gem Masters one-of-one. Like that card is maybe Jordan's best card ever made. Also, there's the green out of 10, like you pointed out, which is a much rarer and more desired parallel than the red out of 90. But once you get out of that, like, Jordan cards, that are numbered to 10 or less, then I think this card has a decent argument to be the best one. And this is the PMG red. It's so different. And it's the concept of the card, from a design point of view. Like they had this Metal Universe set, and the theme of the set was placing the athletes in these surreal, larger than life, outer space style settings to sort of, symbolize how these players were transcending everyday life, that they were doing just these otherworldly things, and that's the impact they were having on culture. And but then they took the original design, and for the PMG red and the green, they just like, in a sort of like nod to postmodern technique, they just blew out and wiped away the colors of the original design and just like washed them out with all red and all green. And I don't know why, but it really like, it just resonates with me the way they did that. And the way how, like, I know what it's supposed to look like in the base version. I know how colorful it is. I know the etched hollow foil is still there on the PMG parallel, but I know it's supposed to be colored, filled in with different colors. But just the way they wash it out with the red, in the Chicago Bulls, red is obviously, an important color to Jordan and Bulls collectors. Just kind of the whole art of it, the sort of the bizarreness of it, the obnoxiousness of this card it just really speaks to me. Plus, I think like when you see it in hand, and sort of whatever materials they use to make the card, the way that it refracts, the way that it's so sensitive. They came out of the packs just chipping. Like this, when I bought this card, the guy who sold it to me was like, "You got to be really careful with this card. If you blow on it, it might deteriorate." that was kind of like, he was exaggerating, but that's the point. The point was that like these cards are really, really delicate.
So do you have this graded yourself?
Well, so originally it was a BGS 8,
Okay.
but it had been slabbed backwards. So the card, an error in the grading process led to the back side of the card being lined up with the front side of the BGS label. And you can actually see it. The card sold on PWCC maybe like, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago or something like that, in its old backwards BGS slab. And so that's the condition it was in. The guy that I got it from took it out of that BGS slab because he figured it was, gonna impair the card's ability to be sold if it's in this backward slab. You got to keep in mind this is years and years ago. This is back in 2018, now almost 5 years ago. I'm pretty sure. And so he took it out and sold it to me raw. And then I met with him in Southern California to buy the card, and then took it right to PSA and got it graded. And was a little bit it was a little bit of a gut punch, especially at that time when it got a PSA 5, because it's like, damn, this was a BGS 8, and now it's gone down 3 full grades.
Wow.
But now that we kind of understand the different scales that the different grading companies apply, it softened the blow a little bit. But that was a gut punch. But at the end of the day, who cares? I also think it presents so nicely in a PSA slab too, like the.
Yeah. I was gonna say that the color match with the PSA slab is like perfect. With the Bulls color match, I mean, like I said, I know there's more valuable Jordan cards, there's rarer, scarcer cards, but this for me, like just design looks wise, this is like the perfect Jordan card. So I mean, the fact that you have this is incredible. I mean, do you know, are the like of the it's numbered to 90, right? The red. So estimate, what do you think? How many are actually like out there, like that weren't thrown away? Or do you really think there's like 90 out there in people's collections, or what do you think?
No, I don't think 90 have made it to circulation, but I would say maybe 50 to 60 have.
Okay.
Just kind of eyeballing pop reports and knowing that there are raw copies that have never been graded that have surfaced. Like Asia was way ahead of the curve on cards like this, and a lot of them ended up overseas and never made it back. And because these cards are in collections in Asia, some of them they're not going to get graded anytime soon because it's very risky to ship a card like this to a grading company. You have to fly it over yourself, basically, I think, to do it. And that's a big trip and an expensive trip.
Yeah, and you know what, with the grade, like you said, a little gut punch, but I compare it to like certain vintage cards where it doesn't even matter the grade with a card like this. It's more of just you have one of the copies. It's a great looking copy, regardless of grade. It's got great eye appeal. So yeah, man, that is fantastic.
Yeah, I'm not complaining one bit. I'm incredibly grateful to be able to have owned that card for almost 5 years now.
Love it. All right, so let's go. Number 3 is, let's see, I'm right. Number 3 on your list is it
right
this one
there?
Right here?
Yep, that one right there.
All right.
I'm higher on this card than most other Jordan collectors are, but at one time this card was sort of had that same appeal that like a PMG Red has. And the card is the 97-98 finest embossed refractor. It's die cut. It's everything. This card is everything about that. It's numbered to 74, and it's everything about the 90s. It's if you took all the technological innovation that happened in between like 1992 and when this card came out in 97, and all the changes that happened in the production of cards, whether it was refractor technology, whether it was die cutting, whether it was the use of embossing, whether it was the application of serial numbering, or whether it was the advent of the gold parallel, or the use of the atomic refractor background pattern in particular. All those things, all of them, they just took them all and combined them for this one parallel. So that's what I love about this parallel. This parallel is everything about 90s cards and all the, the boundary pushing things that manufacturers did in the 90s to get an edge with consumers and with collectors. It's all in this card. So plus I just love the way it looks, and I love that it's just like the PMG Red. This is also from the 97-98 season, which it produced so many of my favorite sets. So that's the deal with this one.
Great choice, man. That is. I don't think I've seen that maybe once or twice, like on Instagram or whatever. Maybe probably on your account, but yeah, that's one I haven't really looked at too much, and that is an incredible looking card too. Wow, awesome, great choice there.
Thanks.
All right, so we got those are the three of your favorites. Now let's go look at three on your want list. So if I go here. You want to just tell me what to type in here?
Oh, man. Let's go with Playmakers Theater, Michael Jordan. I've never owned this card. And theater is spelled, R-E, exactly. So one of these is a 9.5 of this card is actually at auction with PWCC right now. And this is just a card that...
Is that it right there?
That's it. That's the one.
98 Fleer Playmakers Theater. Wow.
Yeah. And this it brings up an interesting discussion of should 98, 99 be considered playing years cards for Michael Jordan. And we don't need to go into it right now, but the bottom line is I tend to side with the fact that they are. So for me, this is within my collecting purview. It's the last year of eligible Michael Jordan cards to collect. It's the last year that products like Fleer were licensed to make Michael Jordan cards. They couldn't make them after 98, 99 until Upper Deck acquired their rights to their products years later. But it's a really sharp looking card. Never owned it. So, and then another card that I think would be really cool to own that I don't own would be the 1997 Rubies, Michael Jordan. And that's the Team Skybox. I believe we have card profiles for the base as well. Maybe if you just scroll down a little bit right there, you might be. Yeah, there it is, right there, number 29. That's what I should have said, number 29.
We are.
This
that's nice.
Yeah, this is such a beautiful card. It's the first Michael Jordan Rubies. I'm sorry, it's the first Michael Jordan Star Rubies. He was in the Rubies set from 96, 97, but that wasn't the Star Rubies, and it wasn't numbered, and it doesn't look as cool. So that's one on my want list as well. By the way, these cards are virtually unobtainable to me, so I'm just really swinging for the fences here.
Although you said the first one was up for auction right now, right?
It is, but it's a 9.5 and it's already at 84,000 out the door. So this is a real wish list here. Let's just say that.
Gotcha.
And then what do I want to go with for my third choice? Oh man, if the price ever makes sense, the 1986 Fleer 57 PSA 10 is a Michael Jordan card that I've just been thinking about lately. For me, it's way too high right now, but if that card ever got back to its price of like 30 grand or 35 grand range, I might try to move some cards around and see if I could get my own copy of one of these. But you just got to be careful buying them. You got to do your due diligence. Fortunately, PSA has the PSA guarantee, which protects the integrity of the grade and the authenticity of the card as long as you're the person buying it on the secondary market and not the original submitter. But yeah, man, I don't know why, but that's just the card that came to my mind third here as we're going through the wish list.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I've seen other Jordan collectors too have, some of them obviously have this, in a PSA 10 or whatever, or even lower grades. But it's funny because some of the Jordan collectors, this is one that they maybe because they know it'll always be available, right? So it's like, oh, I'll get that someday. But they go after the like some of the ones we've been looking at. You go after those kind of first, try to get those while you can, while they're still out there. And then this one's kind of like, yeah, I'll get around to it. And especially now as prices are coming down. Yeah, that's kind of the strategy. I've seen not just you, but some of the other Jordan collectors too.
Sure.
What do you? That reminded me of what I wanted to show here. So
Yeah,
I have a hot take.
Hot take. Let's go.
Hot take. So I kind of dabble in all segments of the hobby. So I collect vintage baseball, but I also collect Larry Bird. I also collect Tom Brady. So I span through the years and through the eras with my collecting. One of the things I've noticed though is based on the segment or what you collect, some of the vintage guys that I know or watch their channels, I think they have the wrong impression about CardLadder. And what I mean by that is not anything real negative. It's just I don't think they know all the features and all the tools that are in CardLadder. I think what they might see is like, all they see is like on social media, they'll see the CardLadder posts where it's all-time highs and stuff, but that's all they see. So they just think it's probably just a tool where you can look at just prices and so forth. And obviously that's a big part of it. But while I'm in it, I wanted to just highlight, I have no skin in this game. I'm just a subscriber, but I try to come on here. And if I see something that I think is really good, I like to talk about it. So this is in the CardLadder here. This menu on the left, guys, if you've never been in this or you don't have the premium version like I do, there are features in here that honestly are tools for collectors that even if you don't sell a lot of cards, even just on the buying side, I mean, the sales history is for me the greatest thing you guys ever came out with, because when I first signed up for CardLadder like 2 years ago, you mentioned it earlier, I contacted you guys because there was a bunch of vintage cards that you didn't have in the ladder. So that was one of the things I was kind of, emailing you on or messaging you on as far as like, hey, these would be some good cards to put in there. But then when the sales history came out, do you know exactly when that was, when you had added that feature?
Yeah, I think it was about a year and a half ago, a little bit less, maybe about 15 months ago now.
That makes sense. And so when that came on, it basically like solved all the problems for me because I was using it last night. I'm not an expert on prices and so forth, but I just want to make sure if I'm buying that I'm buying in the range. Like I don't need to be like exactly at comps or whatever above and below, but I just want to make sure I'm not like way overpaying or whatever for a card or way overbidding. So I always use the sales history where you can look up sales across 14 different marketplaces.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Not just eBay, but so right at your fingertips, you can see what the card is selling for. So I use that all the time. But even outside of that, as a buying tool, I use it also for my collection. So like I've heard other vintage guys talk about, I don't need something like a CardLadder. I just use X because it helps me, document my collection and basically, create basically a profile of my collection. Well, that's the collection feature right in CardLadder. Yep. So it has that feature too, even if you just want to use it for something like that. I find that very valuable for me, keeping track of what I have. It has prices, but if you don't even care about prices, you don't even have to look at them, but you can just, have nice pictures and keep a good documentation of what you have. But also, you mentioned earlier how the PSA 10 86 Fleer Jordan, if it got down to a certain price point, you would potentially make a move on that card. Well, that's one of the great features too I see in CardLadder here. There's something called a watch list where you can set certain cards. I have a few in here now. And if the card ever gets down to a price that you want to potentially buy it at, you can get notified. So CardLadder will send you a notification saying, hey, like this one here, the 80 Topps Bird Magic Julius Erving in a PSA 9. Man, that card's way down. But it's now, $10,000 card basically. So you could say like, hey, if it ever gets below 5,000, or even if it's a $500 card, whenever it gets below 400, let me know. So there's all these basic tools for collectors within CardLadder that, in my opinion, not a lot of, especially in my, like I said, in my certain community that I do a lot of engaging with, I don't think they know that CardLadder has all these features. So I just wanted to throw it out there. Again, I'm not, on the CardLadder team or anything like that. I have no skin in the game other than I just think it's great. And so I want to share that with whoever happens to be watching this that may not know that. So that was long-winded, but there's a ton of other stuff in there, guys, on this menu. So I don't know, Chris, maybe I did a bad job on that, but those were just a couple of things that I wanted to highlight that you guys are not self-promoters. That's one thing. You guys just kind of say, hey, we're putting this awesome product out there. But I just wanted to do a little of that because I feel like it couldn't hurt. There you go.
Thank you, man. I thought that was amazing. I need to, when this video publishes, I'm just going to write down that little presentation you did, and I'll cite you. I'll give you credit as the originator of that walkthrough because that was great, man. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, that's one of the things that bugs me is I do hear I hear these takes sometimes on whether it be YouTube or social media about certain companies, not just CardLadder, but all things. And when I use that product or service and I know it's not true, and I see it's like kind of a general theme out there that CardLadder is only for a certain segment of the hobby, or it's only if you're a flipper or you collect modern cards. CardLadder, in my opinion, is a very affordable tool. I pay annually. I think it comes out to $12.50 a month when you break it down. If you pay annually, I get way more value out of that, in my opinion. Even if you just use one of the features, I think it's very, very valuable. So I just wanted to share that. I actually have never gone on any videos or anything and promoted CardLadder or said anything more than just how I use it in these videos. But I figured when I have Chris on, I'll use that to share a couple of opinions on that.
I'm so glad you did. Yeah, the thing that I feel so strongly about, you made a great case for everything. Sales history is a really, really valuable part of what a CardLadder user can get access to because it's over 50 million sales going back to 2002. We pull in anywhere between 50,000 and 100,000 new sales a day from all the different marketplaces that we're tracking. And to me, a lot of the cards that I collect they haven't necessarily sold in the last year or the last 2 years yet. So if it's sold, the last sale was 6 years ago, I need to know what it was. And I need to know what platform it's sold on. And if there's a picture of it, and we have it, I need to be able to see it. And, there's just sales history to me, in addition to what you said, is just being like a resource where you can go take a look across all the different platforms for what you may be in the market for buying or selling or just doing some research. But also if you're in the market for something maybe hasn't sold a lot, I don't know where else you would go find it if you weren't calling to sales history. So,
and I think if you're a new collector, you always hear about, the industry wants to get more collectors, 10x the collectors. The biggest piece of advice I would give to a new collector is I recommend CardLadder because I think it's the best, but get some sort of tool where you can make sure that you're not entering these cards, buying decisions as a new collector and not overpaying, and by using sales history, you can make sure you don't, because I did when I've been collecting a long time, but when I zoomed back into the hobby early 2021, man, I overpaid because I didn't have CardLadder yet. So I was just kind of going I want this card and there's 4 on eBay. I'm just going to go for the least expensive one, not knowing, oh shit, I just paid double what I should have paid for that. So I really appreciate now that this is out there. And I hope any new collector uses the data before they start buying cards, basically, in my opinion, no matter how much money you have. The more money you have, the more dangerous it is.
I love your approach, Adam. I just love your approach, man. You've said so many things that really resonated with me on this. And hey, we'd love to have as many CardLadder members as there are people who would like to be. But if CardLadder isn't right for somebody, even just a spreadsheet, just some form of accounting that can let a collector track and follow, what they're doing, because especially collecting is so fun. We can get swept away. we can get carried away before you know it, we're not budgeting things properly. So yeah, I mean, no matter what it is, a spreadsheet, whatever, just a notepad. How about old school? If you're just writing it down, who cares? Some level of keeping track of what's coming in and out of your collection is gonna be helpful, and it's also helpful for accounting purposes. If you do happen to sell some cards, and you're like me, or sounds like maybe like you, and some of the cards that we bought over the last 2 years have gone down in value a little bit. It's nice to know when we bought them, when we paid for them, for accounting purposes. So it helps being able to track that stuff. And we try to make it easy, but you certainly don't. You certainly could do it on a spreadsheet. I was doing it on a spreadsheet for years before we made CardLadder.
Well, Chris, we're at about 35 minutes. I know we both got to jump to something else. So I really appreciate you coming on, and I would love to have you on for a part 2. I got a bunch of other things I want to talk to you about. So at some point down the road, hopefully we can jump on one of these again together and take it from there. So
it'd be a lot of fun. I really appreciate you having me on, and I wish you all the best with your channel. And I appreciate that you put out the content that you do.
All right, Chris. Well, thank you. Feel the same way, and be in touch, man. Thanks again.
Sounds good.
All right.